April 27th, 1521. Mactan Island, the Philippines. Ferdinand Magellan has made a very, very big mistake. Determined to circumnavigate the world and cross the ocean Balboa had sighted in 1513, he'd just finished a perilous 4-month journey, rounding South America and making it all of the way to a previously unknown series of islands, the Philippines. See, he'd gotten involved in local politics, converting a ruler in his kingdom to the Catholic faith. But to keep their new conquest secure, they must now crush a rival sub-chieftain, Lapu-lapu, who would not submit to Catholicism. Magellan tells his local allies to stay on the ship. He'll take 49 men, and then overawe Lapu-lapu's people with muskets and crossbows. They wade into the knee-deep water, firing muskets, but to little effect. The Mactan unafraid of their weapons. 1,500 warriors charge on Magellan's men, striking for their unarmored legs. Magellan himself is hit with 2 bamboo spears, kills a man with his lance, loses his helmet. Suddenly, a warrior strikes him in the leg with a great curved sword. Magellan has come a long way to die in the surf. The Spanish era in the Pacific begins with Vasco Núñez de Balboa having trekked and battled his way across Panama, wading into the Pacific Ocean. He holds a banner of the Virgin Mary in one hand, a sword in the other, and declares the ocean and all of its land to be a part of the Spanish Empire. The irony, of course, is that neither Balboa nor anyone in Europe knew just how big this ocean was. But when Magellan rounded Cape Horn, winding his way through the dangerous strait that would later be named after him, he quickly found out. Magellan's journey starts out fairly lucky, hitting a patch of rare good weather around Cape Horn and the southern Pacific. Later expeditions will find the weather around Cape Horn so foul, some will even opt to turn around and take a 10,000-mile detour to enter the Pacific by rounding Africa. But this good weather is where Magellan's luck ends and his voyage turns horrific. He had expected the sea crossing between the Cape and Asia to be 3 or 4 days, a slight underestimate. It takes him 3 months, 20 days. And in all that time, he sights only 2 uninhabited atolls, and 30 men die of scurvy. But he does land in the Philippines, putting it on Spain's expanding map of the world. Magellan left Spain with 5 ships and over 180 men. But only 1 ship, with 18 survivors, actually completed the circumnavigation, minus Magellan. His second mate would finish the journey in his stead. In fact, this circumnavigation was so difficult, it took 59 years before someone else, English privateer Sir Francis Drake, managed to do it again. But circumnavigating wasn't Magellan's true task. The point was to find a western route to Asia. And this was important since treaties signed in 1479, 1494, and 1529 had divided the world into Spanish and Portuguese zones of influence. Because the South Atlantic and Indian Ocean landed under Portuguese control, this limited Spain's access to Asia via the eastern route. The Pacific, however, was Spanish territory. And with Spain expanding its conquest in the Americas, the Spanish had an increasing number of ports to access the Pacific, such as Lima and Panama City. But the most important to the Asian trade was Acapulco, Mexico. In 1565, a Spanish expedition conquered the Philippines, bringing the islands into the Spanish Empire and naming them after their monarch Philip II. And to link the new colony with its other possessions, 2 navigators were given the task to figure out a route from the Philippines to Mexico. The pair suspected that the winds and currents in the North Pacific, like the Atlantic, formed a big circular gyre. And since the winds blew east to west across the mid-Pacific, they should blow west to east across the north. So they sailed north, hitting Japan before they found the winds they'd been looking for. Then, they made landfall in North America, traveling south down the coast to Mexico. For the next 250 years, this Manila galleon route would define Spanish trade in the Pacific. Each year, galleons would shuttle between Manila and Acapulco, trading New World silver and agricultural products for the riches of Asia. Chinese silk, jade and porcelain, Southeast Asian spices, Indian rugs, and Philippine jewelry made in Spanish style. This trade route heavily influenced the Philippines, creating a fusion culture of Austronesian, Spanish, and Mexican, and led the Spanish to develop a line of colonies to support this route, just in case these floating treasure chests ever got into trouble on the 4-month journey. The first of those colonies were on Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, named for Queen Mariana, and then on the Caroline Islands, named for King Charles. I'm sensing a pattern here. They also founded some other way stations to support the Manila galleons. But, it was in a place so small and obscure, I kinda hate to bother with it. But what the heck. In a backwater province called California, they founded 2 port cities, San Diego and Monterey. Other attempts did not go so well. Take Alvaro de Mandana, for example. In 1565, he set out in an attempt to find Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land that since the times of ancient Greece was believed to exist in the southern hemisphere. See, the idea was that because there was so much land in the northern hemisphere, there had to be an equal amount in the south. Otherwise, the world would be unbalanced. And some even suggested that this hidden land was the source of King Solomon's gold. Not kidding. Even as late as the 1800s, some people thought there was another North America kicking around down there. Mendaña didn't find Australis Incognita. What he did find was a group of islands he named after King Solomon. And 30 years later, he set out again to found a colony there. July 21st, 1595. Mendaña and his 4 ships pull close to the high islands with their ridged coasts and deep valleys. For 5 weeks, he's been at sail, and Mendaña orders his crew to kneel and thank God for their safe arrival. Except, these aren't the Solomon Islands. You know, the ones he found 30 years before. It's actually a new chain that he will call the Marquesas, after his patron. Mendaña realizes his error when 70 canoes carrying 400 people come out to greet him. They give the Spanish food and climb aboard curious, greeting and laughing at these strange people with their odd clothes and white skin. Mendaña even dresses one of the Marquesans in a shirt and hat and gives out trinkets. It's a lighthearted scene, but with no translator, neither side really knows what the other is thinking. Are these exchanges trade? Gift-giving? Ritual hospitality, maybe? Then, the islanders begin to remove objects from the ship, perhaps believing they were in the midst of trade. One even begins cutting a piece of bacon off a slab. Mendaña sees this and orders them to leave. When they don't, again, possibly due to them not understanding what was happening, he fires a gun. The islanders dive into the water and swim back to their vessels. But one terrified Marquesan still clings to the ship, and one of Mendaña's men cuts him with a sword, trying to make him let go. The mood changes. Warriors pelt the ship with slingstones. The Spanish fire a volley, killing several islanders. This story of first contact, of welcoming fleets and peaceful exchange, descending into misunderstanding and violence, will play out again and again across the Pacific. But Mendaña will be particularly brutal. Misunderstandings continue ashore. The Marquesans do not understand the religion Mendaña is determined to force on them, and Mendaña doesn't understand their cultural taboos or differing understanding of property. The Spanish meet any minor infraction with violence. Mendaña orders 3 islanders hanged outside his campsite as a warning against theft. A soldier even fires into a crowd unprovoked, murdering a man with a child in his arms. In 2 weeks, they kill 200 islanders. Then, deciding a colony is untenable and that they will continue on to the Solomons, they leave without warning. It will be 2 centuries until another European ship arrives in the Marquesas, and Mendaña's darkness follows him to the Solomons. His colony there will only last 2 months. His malaria-racked crew descending into madness and infighting. Crewmen murder and ambush each other. Mendaña, burning with fever and raving about religion, will order both his lieutenant and a local chief beheaded in front of him. And when Mendaña dies, leaving all of his possessions and power to his wife Isabel Barreto, they stick it out only long enough for 47 more colonists to die in a single month. With Barreto in command as the first female admiral in Spanish history, they leave, taking 12 weeks to reach Manila. Of the 378 people who set out with Mendaña, only 90 would live to tell the tale. But about 50 years later, someone would find Terra Australis Incognita, or at least the island continent that bears its name, Australia. So join us next time when Tasman sights Australia and New Zealand, the French arrive in Tahiti, Europe goes Pacific crazy, and James Cook changes the Pacific forever. Legendary thanks to Ahmed Ziad Turk, Alicia Bramble, Casey Mustia, Dominic Valenciana, Gunnar Clovis, Kyle Murgatroyd, and O'Reels1 for helping to make this show possible.